All right. How was your break? Did you get a little fresh air, a little sunshine? Have you noticed how hard it is to capture the foliage on camera? What's up with that? Those cameras are like how much money? It's the 16th rendition and we still can't capture leaves. What are we doing in the world? What are we doing? All right. So, today's session, we're looking at breaking the cycle of pain, or the pain cycle rather. And when I think about pain, there's just even in the word that I have a reaction. Maybe you do too. In the same way we had a reaction to the word shame. Yeah. And I think that there's a way that we might be able to describe pain away from just like the looming experience of the word itself. Yeah. In a way that we can identify there's like a just a feeling of tenderness or rawness that's there, or vulnerability. Yeah. Or something, just this kind of untouchable ache. Those are my words. You might even kind of check in to see what are your words for how you might describe pain. Sort of the felt sense of it. Tentative, mhm, sharp, heavy, intrusive, and feel into a version of it. Because there's a way in which when we contact the pain and give it kind of voice or validate the qualities of it, something else happens than just the looming idea of pain. Yeah. That's technique one. But pain is also like this echo of the past that keeps reminding us of it. Sometimes a past that's really hard to let go of, right? Or a past that hasn't been felt and seen and supported and held to be let go of. Yeah. And it can also just feel all consuming that that's all we are. We are evolutionarily designed to attend to pain. And so our focus can go on it. Like if I have a little mosquito bite, it's as though my whole body is that mosquito bite. And as my focus goes to that mosquito bite, it's as though the mosquito bite had spread because my attention is so there and present with it. And I think in the same way that we go, ew, shame, or ooh, pain, I like to go back to the sense that like there's an evolutionary reason for it. We are designed to experience pain. We may not like it, that's fair, but it serves some type of evolutionary purpose. Again, sometimes having a sense of what is its purpose can give us a little space from the all-consuming experience of it. And I think as we talk about, what is its evolutionary purpose, we can simply talk about it as a messaging system. It's not very sexy, yeah, but it's a distress signal, or it's a way in which the body, through the language of the body, is signaling to us to bring our attention to something or to come back home. Yeah. And I think and that why that feels so important is because we can so easily go into our own defense responses to it. And rightfully so. Pain is painful. It is noxious. It is challenging. It is sharp. It is tender. It is an open, fleshy wound. And how do we lean in and start to attend to it? How do we start to tune in to the coding of the body to hear its messaging, to where our attention might also need to go beyond just the signal itself? Yeah. Um, I love that Gabber's one of the lines that he's best known for is don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. And then we get to ask the pain itself and get to know it. And we'll get into that practice a bit later of getting to be in conversation with this intrinsic sense of messaging. Yeah. Or this way in which something is calling for our attention. Maybe it's helpful to have a story of levity. When I was in grad school and I was studying for my something, boards or whatever, writing my dissertation, and I was at home where my nephew was also there, and I was not paying attention to him. I was so consumed with my studies, and I'm sure he called my name several times before coming over and punching me in the gonads. But it wasn't until that he got my attention. And it occurred to me in the moment, I was like, something will continue to ask for our attention louder and louder and louder until it is received, just like a child. Maybe it is that inner child. Yeah. And at a certain point, and I'm not saying this is easy, yeah, to start to tune in and have that conversation, to quell the anger or the rage of that child or the way in which it's speeding up its intensity to get our attention. Pain is also a form of protection, which is kind of seems counterintuitive. But pain is a form of protection, saying, let's keep this from moving or being harmed more. Yeah. It's a bracing, it's a holding that's involved in the pain that is trying its best to also protect us. So I'm going to give you a little example. Can I borrow you, Emma? Okay. And I think, as Gabber said, I want to reiterate some points, but I know he made them already, is there the neurocircuitry of psychological or physical pain is the same. Yeah. Whether we have a heartache or whether we have a boo-boo from falling, it's the same circuitry. It's undistinguishable. Yeah. And so I'm going to do a demonstration in just a moment, and as though that it's about physical pain, but I'm also talking about psychological pain or emotional pain as well. Okay. So Emma has a little boo-boo. She's a skateboarder. Are you a skateboarder? Did I just make that up? I feel like you were. You and Avril Lavigne, yeah. Um, she has a little fall, yeah, on her elbow. Can everyone see? Or do we need to step up a little bit? Yeah, let's go up here. Yeah. Okay. So this is our natural protective healing response, right? We have an owie or I don't know why I keep using child language. We have an owie. We have a boo-boo. Just go with it, okay? And then what we have is a bracing that happens in that area, also known as an inflammatory response, right? Swelling goes to that area. Anyone here ever have some swelling? It's a natural protective mechanism that says we got to protect this area from being bruised more, hurt more, moving more. Yeah. And so we get this lovely edemic response, this bracing in the tissue. Yeah. And this sort of buildup of fluid to try to create a buffer of protection. Cool. Temporarily, you can rest your arm. Temporarily, great, right? Temporarily, great. But what happens over time is that this area that's walled off, yeah, this area that is walled off does not have incoming nutrients, the oxygen, the other metabolic nutrients coming in and replenishing and nourishing the tissues. Yeah. And in turn, it also doesn't have an area to export the buildup of metabolic waste. So, in other words, the area kind of becomes toxic. Or another way of saying that as the way we register that toxicity, and that's a harsh word, but the way we register that toxicity of the area is through a signaling we call pain. That is one of the ways in which we experience pain. Now, imagine I put this tinfoil over Emma's broken heart. It's the same. Or the broken heart of that 3-year-old who was never really seen, and her abdomen contracted, pulling tight to try to protect that sense of wounding there. And that area never gets to fully breathe again or have that sense of fluid movement. And again, it builds up literally with metabolic waste, and suddenly we start having these signals. That's the long-term challenge of pain. Yeah, thank you. Is that clear so far? I'm going to talk about a couple different areas of pain. What's challenging about that is that we get what's called a pain cycle within that. So Emma's arm is bracing. The bracing hasn't had a chance, perhaps, especially if we haven't done some processing with it, to fully release. And in our intelligent desire, we feel the pain. And in our intelligence, we go, oh, don't move. Don't move, because movement there could cause more pain. Yeah. And so we get even more freezing in that area, which creates more blockage, which creates more buildup of metabolic waste. And what's strange to that is the antidote is actually movement. And yet, movement is also scary. And this is where we create a cycle of pain where it's scary to move. And there's a part of us that's saying, don't move, brace, brace, brace. And an intuitive part of us that says, I need to get more movement in there. I need more oxygen in there. I need that sense of life force to come back into there. And there's this bind. And that is one of the elements of this pain cycle. Yeah. And we'll talk about how do we move through that? How do we navigate that? Does that resonate for anyone? I see some of my friends who navigating autoimmune and chronic, autoimmune and chronic pain raise their hands. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to show you another example of how that bracing happens. So, I have my own ball, and we're going to do this together. So I'm going to have you pick up your ball. I'm going to have you jiggle a little bit with your ball for no other reason, but just to move a little bit. And you can do this with a book, you can do it with a bolster, you can do it with a friend. Yeah. So I'd like you to kind of, in a moment, feel as though I'm going to invite you to throw it at me. Yeah, in a moment, the ball. You're not going to, but I would like to invite you to imagine and get excited to throw that ball at me, and I'll catch it. I'll catch all of them. Yeah. I promise. So I'd like, on the count of 3, I'd like you to get really excited, get ready to throw it, and then I'm going to say something and you need to listen to what I say. One, two, three, don't throw. And feel the impulse that didn't get to be actualized. How does that situate in your body? Holding, bracing, what else? Ha, halt, stop, stuck. It's not any different than what I just showed up there with Emma. It's the same mechanism. The unexpressed impulses of response, no, that never get to be actualized, show up in the same bracing, the same buildup of metabolic waste that then signals and creates that pain sequence that says, we got to protect this area and freeze more, and there's something wrong here. Yeah. All right, let's just do something with the ball where we get to actualize it. Yeah. Ah, a little breath, a little sound. There we go. Ah, and do something with it. You can toss it, you can just do something that feels right for you. Yeah, drop that book, I don't drop that ball. And just feel the difference of what happens when you get to mobilize. Yeah. Same with emotions. Yeah. Yeah. The sadness that never gets to be in motion. And the result is all the same physiologically, all the same, where it's this entrapment that then builds up. And we start signaling, hey, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. There's something that's not breathing here. There's something that's not receiving the vital nourishments of life here. Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. Pay attention to me until it gets as loud as it needs to get in all of its different manifestations, whether that be an autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, lethargy. Yeah. Okay. Another example, another piece of this. Yeah. So one of the things that happens, I want you just to see kind of like a slinky. I know, Peter, you're the slinky guy. I borrow it. I'm stealing it from you. Yeah. So we have this sense of movement, right? You think about this as the spine even. Yeah. And there's two major components that we think about from a structural perspective, and that's stability. So the integrity of the slinky is staying the same, right? Even as it is able to mobilize. Yeah. So it has stability and mobility. And it's this delicate dance from a structural perspective between stability and mobility. Mobility. I have an injury or an emotional injury. Yeah. And now we have an imbalance of stability and mobility. And the general rule is if there's a place that gets overstabilized, there's going to become places that get overmobilized. Yeah, that might show up in the ligaments. And then that might show up in the organs. An overstabilization in my heart after heartbreak means that some other part of me has to compensate and get overmobilized. Maybe that's one of the reasons I always have, after heartbreak, get a back injury. And the challenge of that is it becomes the integrity of our system gets compromised, especially over time. As more and more of us is trying to find the balance of stability and mobility, and our energy and our attention is constantly trying to play out this Goldilocks balancing that doesn't actually get to resolve itself. Yeah. And so these are some of the important aspects that we want to look at in relation to structural pain, emotional pain, yeah, psychological pain. Yeah. So I'm going to pause and see if we have any dire questions on this material, not about other things. And I might not go into, yep, I see you. You can go up to the mic. And I might not go into all the science details because I want to cover more experiential today. Hi. Hi.
I personally deal with, but I'm sure this could relate to emotions and stuff too.
Sure.
Just the more unique circumstance. Um, I have chronic parasitic infections. So
Just the question, love.
Oh yeah. So
Thank you.
the question is like knowing that I'm going to really like calming that pain, calming that tension
Mhm.
is going to cause extremely uncomfortable sensations.
Mhm.
So what's a way to like wrap your mind around it when you're not in the predicament where it like simply soothes in that moment? It also causes like
Yeah, we'll do a practice next.
okay.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking. And if the practice doesn't quite answer your question, we can come back to it. Hi.
Hi, my name is Amanda.
Hi, Amanda.
I wanted to ask, I have done level 1 of brain spotting, right? And read about the whole book before I even did the training and kind of the thought with our eye movements of where things kind of get stuck or lodged in our brain. And so I wondered if this theory could help make sense of that theory and kind of.
I'm not going to answer that right now. I'm going to stay with this material.
Okay.
But it's a great
that was just a
question.
light bulb thing that
I
went off in my
love
brain.
your light bulb. I am so
So-
into it, and I am happy to chat about it later. I want to just stay with this
Sure,
so we
for sure.
don't go out here. We stay in here with this material. Yeah.
Earlier, when you were talking about shame,
Yep.
you talked about it as a pause.
Yeah.
And we're talking about pain now with bracing.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked earlier, royally.
You're doing a good yes.
Fight, flight, freeze.
That's a few of them.
And I am wondering
Uh-huh.
if you could speak to correlation or complication of freeze trauma,
Mhm.
and then how, because I had never heard shame referred to as pause before, so
Mhm.
just they seem very similar to me.
Yeah.
So if you could
There's
expand.
um a freeze or a bracing. I don't think it's so helpful to get into the nitty-gritty of what's the very big difference, actually.
Okay.
Because experientially,
They're the
how
same.
do we thaw? How do we find
Okay.
flow where there's stagnancy? Yeah. How do we balance? Yeah. So I appreciate the nuancing, but when we actually get into like how do we work with it,
Yeah.
it's not so important.
Okay.
A freeze is a freeze is a freeze.
Got it.
And how do we start to feel that freeze? Or how do we start to feel the stagnancy? That's more important than sort of like me giving you maybe a 20-minute lecture on the different aspects of the yeah.
I actually appreciate. I like the idea that the thaw and flow.
Yeah,
is
and that's what we're going to be doing
Okay.
next. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna take that as the last question, just so we can get into some movement stuff. All right. So one of the elements that we're looking for when we're working with pain, and this is just there's lots of different ways to work with it. Is one of the things I'm going to invite you to do is start to find where is their flow or where is their okayness. Yeah. So I want you to map your body. You can do it visually. You can go and touch and kind of map. Oh yeah, I feel some sense of like flow here or ease or okay enough in the tissue. Yeah. And discovered in this moment as opposed to the assumption that, ooh, typically I have pain here, so then there must be. Yeah. So I want you just to visually scan through your body or touch through your body and find for points of flow. You might move and shift your weight a little bit, just where you can find that sense of like one part of you connecting to another part. That's a sense of flow. Yeah. And we're just kind of recording all the places that where there is some sense of okayness or ease or movement or flow. Yeah. Or where can we invite a little bit of that to happen? And that's different than stretching. Yeah. Stretching will often override our ability to be aware of where there is flow. We're just evolutionarily designed that way. Yeah. So it's subtle movements. It's where can your breath easily move to? We're just finding different channels or ways into where's there some okayness in my body? Okay, we'll take another 30 seconds to kind of map that okayness. Okay. And I'm going to have you just name those places to yourself. So you create that list or you solidify that list of like in my pinky finger and my right elbow and my shoulder. And as you name it, just come back into that sense of okayness here or ease here or flow here. Yeah, so redefine it. Good. I can feel it going deeper this time in the room. That sense or contact with that ease. Good. Now I'm going to invite you to also just notice maybe one, maximum two places where there's less or not so much flow. And you might shift your body weight and just notice, ooh, there's a sense of like that wave of energy or that wave of fluid or that wave of breath can't really pass through there as easily. Good. And notice if your focus dives right on into that area. It's okay if it did. So just name those two, one or two places, and then I'd like you to zoom out to feel the whole of you. So perhaps that one place of pain or challenge, and also the areas of flow. So zooming out to experience or notice the whole of you. And from that zoomed out place, what do you notice now about that place of tension or holding or bracing or freezing? Without having to go into it, what do you notice now? And if the answer is not much, that's okay. Cool. And then I'll invite you to pause. We're going to come back and work with that spot in just a minute. But what did you notice? Yeah. You're amazed. Oh, sorry. Can we pass the mic around, my love? Sorry. We'll get those steps in. We will.
I'm amazed.
You just have to talk into the mic.
Okay.
There you go.
So I have back pain and it's been difficult all week and it's been difficult. And, part of my internal conversation is, oh God, when I get back, I have to call the doctor and get an injection or something like that. And I did this thing, this exercise, and I have to tell you, it's like almost disappeared.
Amazing.
I'm not kidding.
I believe you. I believe you. I've done this exercise too. It feels good sometimes. Yeah, there is something about being able to change the channel of our attention that makes a difference. There's something that changes because again, part of what pain is our interpretation of it. Our interpretation of the signal also has an effect. Our catastrophizing of our signal, I'm speaking from my experience, amplifies it. Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Maybe one or two more? Hi. There's a mic coming your way.
So I was surprised I had a completely opposite experience.
Great.
I've had some shoulder issues and I've just been kind of ignoring it and
Mm-hmm.
not letting it interfere in my life. And all of a sudden I could feel the whole area of my shoulder and the edges of it and where it felt like there was no flow.
Mm-hmm.
It was completely like isolated from the rest of my body.
So it sounds like as you were able to zoom out a bit, that you got actually the size, the shape, you got the quality of and the information of what's here.
Yes.
Great. We'll definitely want to use that later. It's our roadmap in. Yeah. One more? Yeah.
I found that the same places could be either okay or not okay,
Sure.
depending on how I looked at them.
Okay. Yeah.
And also the distance from
Uh-huh.
which I looked at them.
Yeah. Yeah. So in this moment, it sounds like you were able to find some experiences of both.
Yeah. And
Great.
like through here, I
Mhm.
could make it go away and I could make it come back.
Mhm.
And
It almost sounds like you have some witchy powers.
I've been told that before.
I love that. I love that. Or you're just a human being with the capacity, and you're a human being in addition to being a witchy, powerful human being with the capacity to bring awareness, and where awareness goes, energy can flow, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go, and we're going to do micro movements. So as I said before, there's a mechanism when a place is bracing or in freeze that says, ooh, don't move. But we know that bringing in movement will allow that fresh oxygen to come in, the nutrients to come in, that area to also begin to recognize as new nutrients comes in that it's no longer in the point where the pain occurred. It's almost like we're letting our body catch up to the time of now through movement. Okay. So I'm going to invite you to find that area that wanted some attention, connection, the part that felt painful or challenging. And I'm going to invite you, if it's possible, to bring the ball to that area. Now, we can also bring it to the areas around it first, but because we're shorter on time, I'm not going to do that. But I might just reinforce these areas around that place of pain or challenge or stagnancy to feel into more that sense of movement around it. Yeah. And then I work from the edge into that area. Okay. That sounds sweet. Is it like on your backside? Then place the ball on your back. Yeah. Or like you might lie down, or I'm pretty sure there's nowhere that the ball can't touch if we're creative enough, which I am. So I know. Is that good? Perfect. You're creative too. I love that. Okay. So that same practice we did before of where we are inviting ourselves to see where we can say yes to meet the edges of that ball, to create sort of a relationality there. Yeah. And where we can say yes to receiving the contact of the ball. We might even create a little bit of like nice little heat. Yeah. And as we establish that sort of relationality of us contacting, yielding, saying yes to being in connection to the ball and the ball into us, then we're going to find little micro movements. Now, this also, as we get contact in this area, we might also just start to bring our breath more into that area as well. So a little bit of breath, a little bit of micro movements. And some of you, perhaps, are moving around the ball, which is different from moving from the point of contact. So we establish that sense of relationality to the ball. That's the point of contact. And then we want to move in and around, in from the point of contact. Yeah. So if my ball is on my shoulder and I'm just moving the ball, I'm not really moving my body. Yeah. So how can I use my other hand to start to find these little micro movements? I'm using the ball as feedback that I have support there. So the little trick here is I'm finding micro movements and breath with support. Little micro movements. Take another minute of micro movements and breath into that area. And it might bring up some sensation. It might bring up some memory. It might bring up some emotion. And that's okay, as long as it's okay. Okay. Next, finding a pause in the next 30 seconds or so. Okay, and then finding a pause. What did you notice? Yeah, can we bring you a mic? Can we get a mic? Thank you. It's for the online group. Melissa, I don't see anything on the screen.
So my point of restriction was mid-abdomen. and felt a real blockage there. As I
Mhm.
did the micro movements, I felt a magnetic pull just below the navel. It wanted to be down there, just slightly off of where I had sensed it. So
Great.
that was an interesting discovery, and that gave me actually more flow
Beautiful.
and relief.
Beautiful. So it sounds like from starting the initiation of contact, it gave you an insight as to where it needed to go. So you were listening to some of that messaging as it gave you direction. And from that, some type of relief or release, movement. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
I had my problem with my neck, and I thought it's because of my job. I used to translate a lot, and then memory came back that I was ducking up, down, because of my mother, who was always fast with her hand. So it came back that it kind of
Yeah.
started a long time before.
Yeah. And as the memory,
Yeah, when I was kind of trying to practically ease that with the ball, it came very like
Yeah.
I saw her like
yeah,
and
yeah,
my neck down.
yeah. And so what happened next?
It's kind of good to know that I didn't develop it myself because I was blaming myself for that, or kind of like trying to, okay, this is because of your job.
Yeah.
And
So,
it's,
so
I
let's-
realize it's kind of trauma there.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You say that.
I can work with that.
You can.
Because I didn't know about that. You were talking about that, or we are talking that sometimes
Yeah.
we don't know about our
don't know.
traumas
Yeah.
because we tend to apologize for our parents.
True.
They didn't mean it, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
take the guilt away from them.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. So it sounds like there was a real opportunity to move into the body story that was there, the memory that was embedded in the tonicity of the muscles, in the bracing or the holding that was there. Yeah. And I imagine over time, as you said, it gives us an opportunity to really work into some of the trauma that's creating the chronic pattern. Remember, yeah, when one part is bracing, we overstabilize and overmobilize. Sometimes those chronic pains are the muscles, for example, trying to stabilize the hypermobile ligaments that happen in response to trauma. Yeah. Less. Yeah.
This pain that I it doesn't happen all the time unless I am thinking about a certain memory.
Uh-huh.
And so that's what I did. And the pain appeared right in between my shoulder blades.
Uh-huh.
And I have done EMDR. And whenever I hold the buzzers, I start burping.
You start
because
burping.
The
Yeah.
energy is flowing. And same thing happened.
So same thing. So there was some
Yes.
sense of
And I felt the release.
yeah. Can we hang out for a moment?
Sure.
Is it okay if we call back that memory a little bit?
Sure.
Okay. Let me know when it's here for you.
Okay.
Okay. And what's happening in your back?
The tingling starts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And can we also call back? So we're going to hold two memories at the same time, if we can.
Just hold on, Scott, because I'm what everybody, I'm feeling anxious. So I'm being confounded by two
You are confounded
sensation-
by two things. Yeah, take your
sensations. So
time.
I'm just gonna use my
I
resourcing
really
to.
appreciate that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we can call back, thank you, by the way. If we can call back the memory of that sense of something in your back also flowing, a memory from just 2 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what happens as we call that memory back?
The tension in the back starts coming up.
As you recall the memory of it flowing through
The
with the ball.
energy. Oh no, I didn't do that. I
Okay.
recall the memory. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So you might even put the ball back there if that's helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it starts moving,
It starts moving.
almost going away, like leaving
Yeah,
my body
almost
from
going
here.
away. Uh-huh. So we're going to do a little dance. We're going to hang out with the memory of, oh, this can move. And then we're going to just kind of look over at the other memory, kind of peek over at it. Then we're going to pendulate back to the memory of, oh, there's movement that's possible here.
Okay.
Or it's safe enough for movement to be here.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So first I recall the memory of the ball moving.
Movement.
And then when I feel the movement, I pendulate to my memory for the pain.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then back again.
Sure. What I noticed is when I think I started moving myself.
You
too.
did. You started
Uh,
you moving yourself.
The sensation moved.
Can you just hold the
around.
mic up a little?
Sorry, the sensation moved around,
Mm-hmm.
and when I went back to the memory, it became concentrated back into between the shoulder blades.
Mm-hmm. And then one more time back to the movement.
Oh, I didn't do that.
That's okay.
So-
We're just doing a sandwich here. You know,
Okay.
a little movement sandwich.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is kind of diluted.
What's diluted?
The concentration.
The concentration dilutes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. The concentration of the stagnancy diluted. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't feel the intensity the same.
No, I saw that. And it was easier to come back to the movement again.
Yes.
It's almost reaffirming to our cells, to our tissue, because I didn't want to work the memory with you. That wasn't what we were going to do today. But
Yes.
we're reinstating, I can be in that flow and I can come out and I can still go back in
Yeah.
to the flow or that
Yes.
ease or okayness.
Yes. Yes.
And building that sandwich over time can either just dilute the pain that happens, or it gives us enough support to know that no matter what we do next with that memory, there is a buffer or an experience of okayness. Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Because whenever I come out of my EMDR session,
Yeah.
I can feel myself burping throughout the
The-
day.
Sounds fun.
It's not.
Sounds like
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thanks. All right, we're going to hold off on more comments for now. So those are a few of the techniques that we can do, micro movements. I really want to reaffirm that we're finding the point of contact. We're establishing the relationality with the ball and then moving from there. Because what's often missing? What do we think? Especially in a painful experience that got held, that never got to be repaired, to use the language from before, what's missing? Relationality. Because one of the other things that happens in trauma and or pain is especially something like isolation pain or like heartbreak, yeah, which we're designed. I mean, this is one evolutionary psychology perspective, is that we feel the level of heartbreak that we do to keep encouraging us to stay in a social bond. Not ideal. Yeah. But we're biologically wired for connection, for bonding, and we have this signal when that's interrupted, and we call that heartache or grief, pain. And the same is true. We have the same mechanism of grief or isolation as when we are apart from someone or break up with someone or they pass, as we do when we are cut off from ourself. It is the same ache. It is the same mechanism of pain. And the very basics of trauma is that it cuts us off from ourself, which cuts us off from our ability to be in relation to other people. And that is painful. And especially when that pain has not been held and seen and supported, it stays in the tissues. It stays in that bracing. It stays in that inflammatory way until the signal gets loud enough. Yeah. Hold on to your question. Thanks. Yeah. So we did a couple different practices. Sounding can also be a way of doing movement. Yeah. Doesn't always have to be movement. It can be sounding to kind of open the channels. Dance. Yeah. Again, if there weren't chairs here, we would actually be doing a dance right now of moving our whole bodies, of really finding and connecting each joint perhaps into a sense of flow between the joints. So rebuilding the map of ourself through our proprioception, through our kinesthesia. Those are just receptors for how we can start to experience ourselves from the inside. So movement, as infants, movement is how we literally discovered who and how we are. It's like, whoa. It wasn't we were just looking on the outside, we were feeling it. Oh my God, I think this is my hand. Yeah. And it's through our movement that our whole body mapped a sense of self. And it's through things like trauma that interrupt that mapping. So here we are again at this bind. It's movement that helps us remap our sense of self, the self that was lost in trauma, and the pain that's coming from that. And often in pain, it says, brace, hold still, don't move. That is the trauma, the pain cycle. Is that clear? We got to move. We got to find movement. We got to reinvite. I don't know if I can. You'll just watch the tape. Yeah. So movement, sounding, yeah, can be large gross motor movement, but if there's pretty active pain, micro movements are pretty great. And we're just reconnecting a sense of support and safety and movement. We're bridging them back together. And then eventually we can use that movement, which is maybe just a different training than this one, of remapping, refining ourselves through the mechanisms to which we first discovered ourselves as infants. Yeah. Sound good? I think I'd like to do a dialogue meditation with you now. Is that okay? And then we'll do questions. Oh, we're at demo time. I'm sorry. Yes, we'll do that. I'll do this thing tomorrow. So we have time then. So you won't miss out, I promise. All right, so let's if it feels all right, let's take our balls, stand up. And just find some movement. Nothing special. Just see what feels good to you. A little compression, maybe. A little expansion. Maybe you pick up your legs. Yeah. And then maybe a little jiggle. And then I'm going to invite you to sit on your ball. And find a little jiggle there as Peter comes up. So we'll just greet him with a little jiggle. I think I was saying earlier, I never had couches in my office. I only had balls for people to sit on. So this is, you can't necessarily see each other, but if you look at each other and you just see like, hi, and they're bouncing, that is what I saw for many years. And it's delightful from this sense, so thank you. We'll welcome Peter up and he'll do a demo on working with the pain cycle.